Hi everyone, this is Attila from Caveman Code, formerly known as Logic Scripts, with a video tutorial and demo of Chordio version 2, which I'm finally done with, or at least it's out. The first part of the video will focus on the Logic version, and the second part, about halfway in, I guess, on the live version. Now, the two versions are quite or pretty much identical in what they can do, but there's obviously small differences in how it looks and some naming conventions, etc. But what you learn from one you can use in the other, basically. Okay, so let's start with the Logic version. If you use the installer, you will have created a folder for you with the script in it right here. So you just load it and you're good to go. Now these the settings in the order they appear do the following. The bass note, unless it's set to 0, the bass note is an extra note that the script generates aside from your chord. So you can set this to -24 semitones. So it's an extra bass note. The bass note mode. If you're using Flam, because if you're not using Flam, then this doesn't really have any effect. But with Flam, in solo mode, the bass note comes first, followed by the chord notes. In member mode, the bass note and the first chord note is sent simultaneously. So it sounds like this. In solo, in member. Okay, let's put this to something more pleasing. Again, member and solo. Okay, so there's a difference there. You set the Flam in milliseconds here, either manually. You can set it from nothing, which gives you a straight up chord, up to 2000 milliseconds in the Logic version and 500 milliseconds in the live version. Or you can choose to sync the Flam value to the tempo that you're in. So if we sync it now, it should calculate it automatically for us, and if we change the tempo, the script should also automatically adapt. Okay, so that's new for the version 2. Another new thing for version 2 is swing, which works just like swing, just like you'd expect it to. 50% here means neutral, so there's no swing, and you can set it to a positive value up to 99% or a negative value down to 1%. And the swing is calculated on the currently chosen setting here, basically shifting every second and fourth beat either forward or backward in time. The Flam Humanize setting adds a little bit of variation and randomization to these intervals to make it sound a bit more human. So a nice low setting here gives you a more human feel. A very high setting gives you, well, it sounds pretty badly timed at a high setting, but a little bit of Flam Humanize is recommended to make it sound more organic. And exactly the same thing with Velocity Humanize. The script takes your trigger note and uses the velocity from the trigger note to for the velocity of the chord note. So unless you set a value here, all the notes will have the same velocity as your trigger note. Another new thing in version 2 is these Flam modes. We have 3 of them. Held is how I'd imagine sort of a slightly flammed chord played on a keyboard. It sounds like this. So the notes are played after one another, but they are held together. Single is more like a straight up arpeggio. And if you choose single, the note length equals the Flam. So with a little swing, it sounds like this. Okay, and the third mode you have is single plus re-trigger, which lets you keep one trigger note playing. Okay, now before we move on to Flam direction, I just want to explain you don't really need to know the technicalities behind it, but I've changed the way well, I've changed pretty much everything about the script underneath the hood. But one thing that is different now from before is that the trigger notes sort of regulate themselves. So if I hit a C, right, let me show you the keyboard so you see what I'm playing. If I hit a, oops, a bit big. If I hit a C, if I switch to an F now, my new trigger note, the F, automatically sort of kills the previous trigger note, so you don't have this potential cacophony that we had with version 1. And also, the way it's set up now, I mean, I still have a kill switch button at the bottom here called stop in case you have hanging notes, but I've actually not managed to get it to hang so far. Okay, so let's move on to the directions. Now the directions work best with single and single re-trigger, although they do work with held as well, but they sound a little bit weird sometimes depending on the direction. So I'll show it to you in single mode. The ascend direction is obviously ascending, and the descend is okay. And now you have the bass note. If we turn the bass note off, it will be even more. Okay. We should pick a chord that has a few more notes. Let's pick this one. So that's ascending alternate. Descending alternate is the same thing, but the other direction. Ascend meet. Descend meet. Thumb ascend, which means that you pedal the thumb note. Thumb descend, you pedal the thumb note but descending. And the pinky is the same thing, but pedaling the pinky note. Now then there's the random direction, which pretty much just randomizes the order of the notes. And finally there is the random from this list direction, which gives you one of these above at random. So that one is pretty fun to play around with using the re-trigger. So if we set this to not 0 humanize and this to 50%, it should sound pretty cool. And let's put this to a little bit faster. Okay, and then we have chord inversions. Now they behave exactly like you think they do. But choosing an inversion also shifts your bass note. So if I have this set to -12, for instance, the bass note follows the inversions. So if I set this to first inversion, our bass note will actually be, in a C major chord, will be the E, and not 9. It's not 12 semitones down, but what is it, 9 or something. Okay, so that's the basic functionality of the script. And of course here in chord scale you pick your chords and scales. Now there's a slight difference between the live version and the Logic version. The live version has a basic chords mode and a complex chords mode. But that because I think the live version, it's a little bit more daunting to find the right chord, while navigating this Logic menu is quite it's faster and easier. So I didn't do that distinction here in the Logic version to try to keep the number of interface choices to a minimum. Now the key switching works like this. You can think of it as a favorites menu, and the actual key switching is optional. And if you don't want key switching at all, you can just not maximize the script and don't pay attention to it. And I mean, doesn't matter what you set these to if you don't use them. But if you want to use the key switch as an actual key switch, you pick a note here, and that note will be reserved for key switching to the chord or scale which you have chosen below it. So with this setting, whenever I play the A sharp -2, the script will switch the active chord scale here to the chord that I've chosen here. So you can either use this with real key switches, or you can also activate them by checking this checkbox, and as you see here, the corresponding chord gets activated. And if you have any issues with a hanging note or something, you just hit stop here and it silences the entire script. Now the script should work with a pretty low CPO load. Now I have both Live and Logic running, and the screen recording, so this is a bit unfair. But right at the onset, when you start the script, it has a little bit of a spike because it needs to do a lot of computation at the very startup. But after that, it's pretty low on resources. Okay, so that's it for the Logic version. Let's switch to the Live version. I'll just mute the Logic version here so it doesn't play for us. Great. And we go over to Live. And hopefully you have sound. Let me just double check. I think so. Here, if you are on a Mac and use the installer, it should pop up here in Max for Live, Max MIDI effect, and mine is about here. Very much the same choices and settings, except it looks a bit different. Again, here we just have the Easy Keys piano loaded. Now here you have right here the choice between basic chords, which give you a rather short menu with only just shy of 80 chords, and if you go to complex, then you get the full 400 something scales and stuff. So the order here is a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same things. Bass note, here you set the bass note down to, oh yeah, okay. So in Live you're allowed a bass note of -36, but I mean you probably will never use it to under 24. I don't know. Here you switch between solo and part. Well, in Live the solo and the member is called solo and part. Here we have the sync to transport setting, or the manual setting for the Flam in millisecond. Flam humanize, velocity humanize. The swing setting, again, swing is 50%. At 50% is neutral, and you can add positive swing or negative swing, shifting the second and the fourth note, either forward in time or backward in time. Here you have the inversions of the chord. Well, oh yeah, I forgot. Live has the display of the chord chosen and the chord played right here, which is not possible to do in Logic without making it glitch like mad. So if you want a display in Logic, you have it right here in the script editor. So if you want to see what's going on and what the script is doing, you just, okay, I was pretty sure I could do this. Yeah, like this. You can just show it like this. Okay. So back to the live version, sorry. Here you have the held mode and the single mode. Held plays it like sort of a pianist, and single mode is an arpeggio. And here, once you have chosen single, you have the option to do one shots or retrigger. Okay. Here you have the different directions, which work exactly the same as in Logic. Because I wasn't able to fit the whole long name here, it's called random direction, but it does the same thing as random from this list in Logic does. And the key switches work exactly the same in the live version as in Logic. So you can either have a switch assigned or not, and but you can also just manually sort of activate the chord by pressing this little button next to it. And here you have the kill switch over here, which is a sort of a panic button for hanging notes. So that's pretty much it. That's how you use chordio, and I will have a little bit more of a demo coming up later, but for now this is the tutorial, and it's pretty much all you need to get started. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.